Hello, Dr. Shobha.
Okay, now we can start.
Hello, everyone.
So,
Good morning.
Morning.
good morning, everyone. This is Firoz from Walter Bushnell marketing team. And on behalf of Walter Bushnell, we welcome you all to this wonderful fortnightly webinar of Indian Menopause Society under the technical collaboration of Walter Bushnell. So this is a fortnightly event that is going on for the last 6 weeks. This is sixth session of IMS Prerna. And with this, I hand over this session to Dr. Nirja Chawla ma'am, who is the renowned gynecologist from Chandigarh, a gold medalist and founder chairperson of Digital Education Committee of Indian Menopause Society. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Take it ahead.
Yeah. Thank
Wonderful
you.
introduction of dear Nirja. Good morning. And
Good
the floor is all yours as always.
Yeah. Good morning, Firoz, and good morning, all the participants. And we are here for this lovely program, which is the brainchild of our president. This is actually an Indian Menopause Society program. So this is the brainchild of our president, Dr. Pushpa Sethi, and the Secretary General, Dr. Arti Gupta, who are here with us today also. And this program they had conceptualized as having one motivational talk and one on the tempo of exercises. So today we have a very, very wonderful speaker with us. I am very grateful to her, and we have been friends years ago, and it's lovely to reconnect. In the meanwhile, I have seen her grow so much as a person. And she has written an amazing book. Let me just show you guys. So this is the book. Are you reading it upside down? It's okay.
No, ma'am, it's visible.
Fine. It is fine.
Visible.
All right.
It is fine.
So this is a lovely book, and it's titled The Bhagavad Gita, a life-changing conversation. I think we will inquire from Dr. Vandana after her talk more about this book, because I have read it and it's different. It's really conversational. So let me introduce our first speaker, Dr. Vandana R Singh, who is a Ph.D. in Indian writings in English. She is very widely published and an accomplished literary translator. I have known her to do all these works from Hindi to English, and she continues to do that and is in great demand for all this. She is an author of several books on English language teaching and communication skills, published by the Oxford University Press. And she was conferred with the award for recognition for outstanding contribution to literature by Chandigarh Sahitya Academy in 2013. She's also the founder, which is a very, very beautiful thing that she has done. She's a founder of the RS Foundation, which is named after her late husband, a philanthropic organization working for the health and digital literacy of those who are more needy than everyone. So, Dr. Vandana, I welcome you, and I invite you to deliver your first presentation. Your presentation, which is the first presentation of today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nirja Chawla. A very good morning to this very esteemed audience. First and foremost, my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for having me here. I'm indeed honored. Having been in the field of education right through my professional journey, delivering lectures is not new to me, but I have to admit that I've never addressed doctors earlier. And I have no awkwardness in admitting that this is a completely new experience for me, and also just a little bit unnerving. So please bear with me. As you would have gathered from the title of today's interaction, we are going to share some thoughts about power and empowerment. Empowerment is the buzzword these days, and we hear it repeatedly in multiple contexts. The word, or actually I should say the idea, is used for children, women, professionals, and so on. And it often refers to the idea of empowering marginalized or disadvantaged individuals or communities. And it suggests empowering them with tools and resources that they need to succeed in life. This concept is important in many fields, including social justice, education, business, and a number of philanthropic organizations are engaged in empowering individuals as well as communities. And we are all well aware of these initiatives. But today I want to talk about a different kind of empowerment, and also about having the power to empower and how we can put this unique power to use. But more on that later, I will come back to it. I was told that this is to be a sort of a motivational session, but allow me to digress just a little bit. I'll take the liberty of just moving away from this topic and first share an experience with you. Last year, along with some friends, I visited Turkey, or Turkey as it is now called. And we did all the touristy stuff. And one morning we found ourselves at the very well-known Topkapi Palace, located in Istanbul in Turkey, which some of you might have visited. This palace was the primary residence of the Ottoman sultans for about 30 sultans who lived and ruled out of this palace over a span of 400 years. And as is the fate of most historical monuments, now this palace is a major tourist attraction. The palace complex includes several courtyards, gardens, buildings, including the harem, which is always of great interest. I do not know why. The imperial treasury and the armory. And visitors can explore the palace's many rooms, which are filled with artifacts and very, mind-boggling displays and so on, and everything related to Ottoman history and culture. And the palace also offers this absolutely stunning view of the Bosphorus and the city of Istanbul. We were very fortunate to have a very well-informed and a sincere guide. I suspect it was so because she was a woman, who not only gave us the usual details about the palace, but also a little bit about the inner lives of the sultans. And this part was of special interest to me. After the usual questions about the number of wives the sultan had and the concubines and the harems and so on and so forth, after she had dealt with all these, then she told us a fascinating story about how efforts were made for the all-powerful sultans to maintain their humaneness and for them to remain engaged with the fact that they were eventually ordinary mortals who could make mistakes. Most monarchs, as we know, tend to have larger than life egos. But for the Sultan of the mighty Ottoman Empire, who was easily one of the most powerful men in the world 500, 600 years ago, ego and megalomania, metaphorically speaking, I suppose, was in their DNA. They were expected to be arrogant. They were expected to exercise their power in the most brutal ways. And we have all heard horrible and horrific stories of what used to go on. And so keeping in mind the pitfalls of these character traits and the fact that unchallenged authority can lead to some poor decision-making and can eventually affect the well-being of the subjects and entire society, a fascinating system of checks and balances was put in place. And this, I'm narrating what has come to me from the guide. And there were two parts to this, at least two that I remember. One was that the Sultan had to spend some time each day in working with his hands. Now, for all of you who are doctors and surgeons, for you, working with your hands is something that you are doing every day. Perhaps other ordinary people like me are also doing something with their hands every day. So it might not strike us as something unusual. But for the Almighty Sultan to actually put his hands to work is something that perhaps today in this time and age, we cannot even begin to imagine what it implies. But the idea here was that the Sultan must learn to either do some weaving or maybe painting or some sculpture, something in his hands he should do. And the idea was that in an eventuality, when the Sultan might cease to be a Sultan for some reason, he should be able to have something to fall back on. Something that will, number one, help him survive, and number two, keep him occupied. And this I thought was so interesting in the context of how things are these days, where we see people who, as young people mostly, who have one primary profession, and along with that, they are doing multiple other things. And as compared to our generation, perhaps I feel that this generation that is doing a bunch of other things along with their professions, perhaps they are living a more wholesome life. I don't know. It's a question. But the other thing that we were told that the Sultan was to do, or that was done for the Sultan, was that all princes who were in line for the throne had a person close to them assigned as their mentor, or what is called in the local Turkish language, a lala. And this person could be an old nanny, it could be a wise relative, it could be a trusted and seasoned courtier, it could be a tutor, it could be anyone. But what was essential was that that person must have a rapport with the Sultan, a unique rapport with the Sultan, wherein he should be able to have the courage to say to the Sultan when he is straying. So the Lala was also the Sultan's conscience keeper. He or she was his sounding board, his advisor. And most importantly, he was the person who could tick off the Sultan. And custom demanded that the Sultan, though he had no need to be beholden to any of his subjects, but the Sultan could not ignore or bypass his Lala or his advice. So if power was going to his head, if there was misgovernance, if there were risky military decisions being taken, if people were being unfairly treated, or if the Sultan was being unnecessarily cruel or inhuman, that was the time for the Lala to step in and call out the mighty Sultan and ask him to maybe revisit his decisions or his policies, to self-introspect, or to do the required course correction. So it's now been a year since I'm back from this trip, but the story has stayed with me. And I've been thinking, what an absolutely wonderful way of keeping yourself in check. Now, the question arises, is the story true or what? It's possible that it's factually accurate. It's equally possible that it is part of the folklore. It's also possible that it's a story that's been put together for gullible tourists like myself, just to make the entire trip more interesting. But the fact is that the idea is brilliant. And so I thought that as children, we learn a lot from things that we see around us, from real life, but parallelly and simultaneously, we also learn a lot from the stories that we hear, which we know are all fantastical stories. We listen to Panistan stories where animals are speaking. We know it's not, even a child knows it's not possible, but we do it. And so I thought, what is to stop us as grown-ups to believe in a story? If that story is going to somehow make your life better, believe in it. We are not here to gauge the historical accuracy of the story. What we are doing here is, what I'm at least doing to myself here is, that I'm trying to pick out how this story can make my life better. And so for me, the story works. So now this takes us back to the idea of empowerment. And as I said, that we are constantly seeing initiatives of empowerment happening around us, mostly for the benefit of the marginalized. But it might be a good idea to stop and think that, are we ourselves getting marginalized as individuals? Are our inner selves getting marginalized? We all have a backup system in place. Your house is insured, your car is insured, your medical treatment is insured. In fact, even your life is insured. But is there any insurance for your mental well-being? Is there any backup in place? Or are you alone in your decision-making, in your problem-solving, in handling delicate human relationships? It's a question. It's a question that we need to think about. All of us here are successful people in our own right. We are the sultans of our own outer world and inner world. At this stage of our lives, we have the liberty to live our lives the way we want to. But do we have a lala to tell us when we are wrong, to sound us out, to help us course correct? Because this is the time when you are at the top of the game, when you are the top dog, if I can use the word, when things are all, everybody in your family is younger to you, everyone at your workplace is younger to you, you've done it all, you have your 35, 40 years of your work experience behind you, you've cracked it, you know it all. But are you doing it all right? You might be knowing it all, but are you getting it all right on a day-to-day basis? Or are there times when, one, that you are lonely? We all know that is lonely at the top. And two, when your decision-making might not be maybe what it should be. Who's to say what it should be? But maybe we all need that sounding board at some time, somebody to whom we can talk to without the other person being judgmental, and so on and so forth. So, for instance, do you have anyone around you who can tell you to watch your weight? Do you have anyone around you to tell you to eat just a little bit less or maybe more? Do you have anyone around you to tell you that, this color doesn't work for you? And please don't wear skirts. You do not look your best in skirts. Is there anyone around you who can say that to you? For instance, I asked myself, if I'm being abrasive, or if I'm being thoughtless, or if I'm perhaps overlooking some social responsibilities, if I'm being overly judgmental, or if I'm expecting too much out of a relationship, do I have anyone around me who can call me out and who can say, hello, you need to step back here? In other words, have you given anyone power over you? Have you used your power to empower someone over you, over yourself, to keep you in check? So the power to empower is, to my mind, a phrase that highlights the ability to give power or authority to someone, allowing them to take control of your life. I know it sounds like you are subjugating yourself, but in what spirit this is being said, that there are instances, I'm not talking of a 24-hour subjugation or a 24/7 subjugation, but I'm talking of moments when you need a lala. And all of us here know that there are such moments in the lives of each and every one of us, especially when you are caught with success and when, as I said, when you are on the top of your game. So now, who can this person be? And I would say, as in the case of the Sultan, the Ottoman Sultan, it could be anyone. It need not be a qualified counselor, because that cannot be a lifelong thing. That's not something that you can do that for a few weeks, maybe for a few months, but you cannot be depending on a counselor for all your life. It could be a friend, a family member, a trusted advisor, someone who is willing to call you out when you are veering off course, somebody who can keep you grounded. And at this point, I'm reminded of a proverb which all of you are familiar with, I'm sure, which says that behind every successful man stands a woman. I'm sure you all remember this proverb. And so recently, I saw a spoof on this. It was a takeoff from this, and I think it was a meme. I must have been on WhatsApp. Everything is on WhatsApp, which said, behind every successful man stands a woman telling him that he's wrong. So, so this was, of course, supposed to be a joke, sexist, I know, but kind of funny. But now, after this, this Lala experience, I was remembering that line, and I'm looking at it in a new light now, and I'm thinking that maybe the man in question was successful because he had someone next to him telling him that he's wrong. And that's what giving somebody power over yourself is all about. Maybe this man may really not have been successful if his wife was not always sort of telling him, ye theek nahi hai, do it better, or whatever. So it's a thought that I wanted to share with you, how that original proverb moved to stage 2, and now in my mind it has moved to stage 3. So each incident, each word, each situation around us speaks differently to each one of us. So it's really up to us what we choose to pick out of it and how we choose to allow it to enrich our lives. And now I want to move to the next part of this. And that is that, are you somebody's Lala? Because everything is not just about us. Are you willing to make yourself available to someone to make that person's life better? Because we know what goes around comes around. So if I'm saying that each one of us needs a Lala, then there will be a situation when you need to do that for someone. And believe me, it cannot be easy, because it requires utmost sincerity. It requires honesty, trustworthiness. You have to be a reliable person. You have to be somebody that that person can rely on. You need to be compassionate. You need to be patient. You need to be non-judgmental. And most importantly, you have to have the empathy. You have to be able to step in somebody else's shoes and walk around in them, and then give your opinion or then give your advice. It requires patience, it requires dedication, it requires commitment. So just as we might need a Lala, we might also become somebody else's Lala. And I think this is something that we need to think about, and we need to see how this idea can perhaps make our lives better. I'd like to wrap up here with a tiny couplet from Sant Kabir Das, who in his inimitable style has appropriate lines for almost any and every human situation. In the Doha I'm going to read out to you, he uses the word nindak, which means ninda karne wala, somebody who criticizes. So in this case, it means a critic. So nindak here is a critic. And Kabir says, nindak nere rakhiye, keep your critics close to you. Nindak nere rakhiye, angan kuti chhawaye. Angan is your courtyard, your kuti is your cottage. कि निंदक को अपने पास आप रखेंगे तो आपका घर जो है वो संवर जाएगा. निंदक नेरे राखिए, आंगन कुटी छवाए, बिन पानी साबुन बिना निर्मल करे सुभाए. So without soap and water, your critics can make your face shine. They can make your life better. They can make your surroundings clean and pure, and they can make you a much better version of yourself. So I'll just read this once again. I just found this so beautiful. Nindak nere rakhiye, angan kuti chhawaye, bin pani sabun bina, nirmal kare subhaye. And I'm tempted to believe here that it's possible, since Kabir and the Ottoman sultans were contemporaries, it's possible that Kabir heard the Sultan story. And keeping in mind the Sultan's Lala, was inspired to write about keeping a nindak close to you so as to make you a better person and your life more wholesome and more balanced. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vandana. That was so beautiful. And the concept or the idea which you have raised at our forum, I think to have a Lala requires a lot of courage, because you have to suddenly become very vulnerable. You have to drop your fortress to allow the Lala to enter into your heart, into your soul. So you have to reach that stage of vulnerability, which is very difficult. But I think vulnerability, in today's world, we think of building fortresses around us. But vulnerability is the real growth. So if you can become vulnerable to your Lala, that is amazing. And if you can become somebody's Lala, that requires a lot of work on yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have to become non-judgmental, you have to become detached, yet deeply loving.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to say that I can be your Lala, because it's very difficult to leave alone our little subconscious judgments that we continuously play in our heads.
Yeah. So it's Lala time.
Yes, it's Lala.
Yeah. Vandana